Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of I Am Christina DiArcangelo. And with me today, I have a familiar face because I have had Dr. Harvey Castro on I Am Christina DiArcangelo before. I believe it was last year because we're only into March, and this is the first time I'm seeing his face on my podcast for this year. Welcome, Harvey.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to talk to you. I always feel like whenever we meet, I get a lot of time because we both just want to keep talking about everything and anything. So it's fun.
It's awesome because, it's so nice to be connected to a physician like you that gets research, that gets the head and heart concept of how to treat patients, right? It's not about the dollar line for you. You worry about patients before profits. So, my whole mantra is to always help patients. So I love knowing doctors like yourself, Harvey, because you're what people need out there to help them feel better. And so I love to align with physicians like yourself, especially someone who has books, who has a business degree on top of it, not just being a doctor. So you understand holistically a lot more, in my opinion, than most doctors do.
Well, I appreciate that. I've been blessed. I've had a very, very amazing career. And I got to go into it just a little. I come from a very humble beginning. Literally grew up with nothing in poverty in New York City. It was really, really tough. But you know what? I think in the end, it was probably the best thing that happened to me because it gave me this strong grit, this strong why, and this just yearning to learn for more. But more importantly, it just gave me this passion for people and understanding, having nothing and just growing up in those circles. I just wanted to make sure that I always grew up giving back to society, that whatever gifts I was able to obtain throughout life, that I was also giving them right back to society. And I know that sounds a little cliche-ish and whatnot, but honestly, that's the goal. I went back to school in the middle of me having about 350 employees. I had started a company. I had 8 emergency rooms, and I was just passionate about, no, I need to know more on the business side. And then I love talking to you because all of this started for me in a health food store. I was the manager of a health food store back in the day when I was about 15 years old. I can't believe they even let me do that at that age. But it just gave me this passion for medicine and understanding the holistic side of medicine. And my roots started in just alternative medicine. And so that pushed me to become a doctor because I wanted to know the science behind it. And so I felt like I was able to merge traditional medicine with alternative medicine. And so as we met and started talking about all the things you're doing, I thought, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I want. And so thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for joining me. And I love the fact that you are sharing your story with everybody, here so that they understand that you worked very, very hard to get where you come from. You were raised by a single mom and you grew up impoverished, and your mom worked. I remember, you and I talking about how many hours she worked every day and how, at one point as a little kid, you had to let yourself in from school. And, that's a lot for a little kid, but your mom, was stuck because it's not like she had a whole gallop of people that could step in. And she worked really hard to raise you into the incredible human you are today. And so I just, I have a lot of respect for your mom, not that I know her, but some of the things that you've shared with me. I've read your book, one of your books where you talk about your beginning of your life and, the struggles you had to get where you are today, which is similar. We're similar, but different. I'm not a doctor, but I grew up with humble beginnings, blue collar, similar to you. I had both my parents, but, my mom had mental health impairments, and she had bipolar disease and some other things. So it was just really my dad that was raising me, but he worked all the time. And her mom, I'd have to go to my grandma's house. So, we work hard and we have that grit, and it makes us different, I think, because we have a white collar job, but we have a blue collar heart.
I like that. I've never heard that like that. I like the way you said that. It's true.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to tie in the relevance of we all came from nothing and we've made something, and it's not been easy along the way. You've had challenges in your career. I've had challenges in my career, and it's really important for us to show people that when you have the grit that we have and we can't be knocked down, even in desperate times. I mean, there's been some desperate times we've had. We still get up every day. We rise back up like the phoenix that we are every day because we have people to serve at the end of the day. You have patients that you serve and people and companies that you support as a strategic consultant in companies. And similarly, I'm not a doctor, but I have patients to serve through the nonprofit when they call me. We just got a couple cases in recently. And that's why, like literally this week, elder abuse again, which, that rings true to my heart with some of the things that my mom went through last year. So that was one of the reasons why I invited you on today, was because I want to kind of address some of the things that I've been seeing a lot lately. And it's been reported on the news. So I'm not trying to say, oh, I'm trying to join that bandwagon, but I want to talk about the opiate crisis that we are still in, which is kind of like, why are we still in this when there's been how many lawsuits about this? Why are we still prescribing these drugs to patients that are addictive, that causes a whole plethora of problems for these patients? And that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. I wanted you to have your ER doc hat on, because maybe you can help influence people in a positive, in your space as a physician to physician, a more positive way of helping treat these patients. And what happens when these patients get on opiates? Like, what have you gone through as an ER doc when you've seen people come into the ER and they're looking for opiates because they've already been on them?
Yeah. See, this is a tough one. I try my best always to give every single person the benefit of the doubt. I try my best never to be biased, never to look at someone and say, oh, they're just here because they're trying to make some money off the insurance company, or they're trying to play their disease or whatnot. I try my best to be so subjective, almost to the opposite side, so that I don't ever come across as a callous doctor or come across as not believing my patient. With that said, I've come to learn that patients have diseases, and one of them could be addicted to opioids, narcotics. And so that's a really, really tough one, because on one side, that person has a disease and it needs to be addressed. And then the solutions, sometimes the patients do not want those solutions. For example, obviously they come in asking for a narcotic and they may have a higher threshold than, say, you and I. I take like a baby Benadryl if I have some bad allergic reaction, and I'm out for like a day. Whereas if I give it to my kids, one of them will just jump off the roof and she's just crazy going everywhere. And so just to kind of show you the spectrum. And so when it comes to patients, it's hard on several fronts. Number one, like I said, I try to give them the benefit of the doubt. I try to give them alternate medicines so that they're not taking narcotics. A lot of times they're not happy with me. And then I try to meet them halfway. And what I mean by halfway is, fine, I will give you the medicine you're asking, but let's do it the right way. Let's do it with a pain management doctor. Let's have a support group. Let's do it with your family. Let's bring others, so that it's a collective decision, that we're all together doing this. And so that we all know what the dose is and how much you're getting, so that way, fast forward a week later, you're not like, oh, I lost my medicine, or something happened, where in reality you took them all. And I'm not being judgmental. I'm just saying that those are some of the things that I see as an ER doctor. And so other things that I think is amazing is just there's so many different ways to treat medicine. And that's why, pain. And that's why I love having pain management doctors, because obviously, some of the simple ones, it's like biofeedback, and we got wearables, and we're looking at alternative medicine, and then there's now obviously with the cannabis, there's different medical indications for those different ways of treating. The harder part for me is just seeing the devastation from narcotics. That's the part that I'm actually scarred. Let me give you a quick story. I cannot get out of my head, and I'm going to try not to get emotional, but I took care of a 20-year-old male that had overdosed, and his father, we finally found his father, came into the ER, and he came bursting in saying, "Where's my son?" And it was just really tough to talk to him and tell him what had happened. He had overdosed and died. And it got really sentimental and got really tough. And it's one of many cases that I can't get out of my head, because I just feel for that father. He was 20 years old. You can tell he knew better, but in reality, he's just a kid. And to me, it just devastated me. And yeah, I just wanted to share that story just because it hits us all in different ways.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have spoken about my brother, and the fact that he was bipolar. And I found out at the end of his life when he was dying from COVID that he was schizophrenic. I had no idea that I grew up with, a brother that I knew that he had mental health issues more, I was a kid. So to me, it looked more like anxiety, and later on in life, being in the clinical research space, when he would talk to me about things, sometimes when he talked to me about the voices that he heard, this may sound funny, laughably funny, but it really isn't. I thought he was empathic, that he was intuitive, and that he could hear the other side talking to him, because people in our family can do that. They have that ability. So I thought that's what it was, but it turns out now, I found out at the end of his life that it was schiz. And my brother started abusing OxyContin when I was pregnant with Christian. So now Christian turned 10 years old this February, double digits.
Wow.
So this was, 11 years ago, right, Harvey, that I figured this out. And my brother at that point was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. So someone that's in their early 30s, you're a doctor, so you're an ER doc. So for you, you'd automatically go, I need to look at that tox report immediately to try and figure out why this kid would be in congestive heart failure. Yeah. And so my brother used opiates to help stabilize him, if you will, in his brain. And so, because he was hiding, from what was really hurting him from a mental health standpoint. And so what's upsetting about that is the fact that he kept going to the hospital with his congestive heart failure. When I got involved, which was January of 22, I apologize. Sorry, my dates kind of go to back, but it was just last year. So January of 22, I immediately asked the physician when they tapped me in, did you do a tox screen when he came in? Yes, of course they did. Did you see anything? Yes, you did. Okay. How many times was he in your hospital last year for treatments of CHF? She told me 11 times, wow. Harvey, 11 times. And I said, in those times, that every time he came in, I'm assuming you did a tox screen. And she said, yes. And I said, in those 11 times, did he always pop positive from some sort of drug that wasn't cannabis, right? Because to me, cannabis is not a drug, it's a medicinal product that can help people, treat various things. And that's why we do research in this. So I'm not making claims that go out and go get your cannabis. I'm just saying that's one of the reasons why I study and I came into the space 7 years ago, is to help footnote, hey, yes, this does help for pain, or this helps for whatever, DN or whatever it is. So here is this kid who now he's an adult, right? He died at 43, turned 43 there in the hospital. It was the day after he walked in the hospital. He turned 43 and then died 7 days later or 6 days later. But 11 times he came in with this in his system. So this is somebody that needs help. This is somebody that has a little boy that's 4 years old, and he's the only caregiver for this child. And the hospital knew that, right? And then he has an older kid that's been in and out of prison, right? So there's some problems there. And I'm sure he's told, he told them all this. So how does this happen? You know what I mean? How come there isn't more help? I wonder how this happens. Why does this happen?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I know as a medical profession, compared when I first started being a doctor till now, back then we weren't really checking on patients to see if they were abusing narcotics. Now there's a database and see if a patient just got narcotics or not. Obviously, there's always a way to game the system, but it's gotten better and better to the point where it's tougher for patients, which is good. I think honestly, I feel like part of it, you would think we have all this technology, but in reality, it's not integrated the way it should be.
Mhm.
Let me explain. So as an ER doctor, my job is to see patients come in, and my job is to take care of them. And then if they need to be admitted, then I basically hand it off to the admitting doctor, because I have probably another 20, 30 patients that I need to see. And so it makes it tough. I will follow up with the the doctor that's seeing the hospitalist, just because I'm curious. But obviously I can't do that. And then it's just more, superficial if I can, just because they don't give me that much time either. And so the electronic medical record, you would think, your brother came in 11 times, there should be some kind of alarm, something that says, I know there's companies out there that are working on a risk management tool so that they can look at these things and put more of an alarm. But I just feel like the system, unfortunately, is still broken. And as much technology and AI and all the stuff that's out there, I just feel like it's not where it should be. And I think it just needs to be more of a cohesive group working together. The problem, again, I'm not trying to say horrible things about our healthcare workers, because they all work so hard. It's just that the volume of patients that are coming in, they don't have the time to keep looking at each one. And I know that sounds callous, but unfortunately, we need to do something. And I think the other barrier, unfortunately, is access to care when it comes to insurance. Certain individuals, unfortunately, like me, didn't have insurance growing up, didn't have a lot of things. So unfortunately, I was just pushed to the side because I couldn't afford certain treatments, or I just couldn't get it. So, that makes it another barrier. I know, not to drop names, but I know Mark Cuban's pharmacy has come out, and I'm really excited because he's really pushed lowering the price of drugs. And I have noticed it's made a difference. I know just this week, insulin, I forget the name of the company, said that I think it was like 35 or 40 bucks a month, that was going to be their cap. And I thought, oh my gosh, finally, now we're
getting
helping
somewhere. Right.
Yeah. And so, and then, I do remember seeing an article about certain medicines like Narcan to help reverse the narcotic effects, because some people obviously overdose, and making it more easily available for people to have, so that they can take care of a loved one instead of waiting to get to the hospital and they may have overdosed and died. They can do it sooner. So there's all these things coming, but unfortunately, it's not there. The last thing I want to say is back to the pain management doctor. Unfortunately, that's just one person, and it takes a tribe. It takes all of us to work together. It takes the ER doctor, the sister, the mother, all of us as one. If you're seeing a loved one going through something, it's hard to call them out, but then don't be that enabler where you're allowing it to happen and look the other way. I think our goal is just to start looking for those signs and seeing what's going on. And now with the internet, you can find a lot of resources out there that are from the CDC or from our government to kind of help guide you to find those things. And if you do identify that, then I would think don't be the one that does it all, but find a team, find a pain management doctor, find, if you're a religious person, find someone at the priest, if you're a priest, to help you with all this. Because I think
guide you.
It's different people. I know that growing up, I was stubborn, and probably my mom was the only one that could talk to me. But sometimes it takes that person, and it may be your neighbor, maybe the pharmacist that for some reason gets a hold of your loved one, and they can get through to them. So those are the people that I would encourage you to reach out to get help. And if it's you yourself that is having issues, then I highly encourage you to find help, and then be consistent, and know that it's a disease and that it's like a stock market. You're going to have highs and lows, but the goal is that you're trending towards better health.
I love that you say that, that it's like the stock market, because that makes it less painful, right? From a stigmatization standpoint, a lot of these patients are very much stigmatized. I know, like in my brother's case, when I had to get his personal belongings and they messed up and they had his phone in a different place and all this nonsense. Anyway, I called the hospital and said, hey, I need to pick up my brother's phone. I'm going to send another family member to pick it up, because I was afraid to go to the hospital at the time because it was in the peak of COVID and I hadn't gotten COVID yet. And I was fearful. So I had a family member go, but while I was on the phone with the guy, he gave me a hard time. And this was security for the hospital. And he goes, well, what do you need the phone for? Are you another junkie? What? First off, excuse me, I am not a junkie. Okay. And secondarily, I'm someone who just lost her brother and I'm the older sister, you know what I mean? So it was a lot. So to say something like that, because my brother had an issue with using drugs because he had mental health impairments that prompted him to do so. How is that a junkie? That's not a junkie. That's someone that needed help, right? And he didn't get it. And I tried, several times. I didn't enable him, but people just sometimes just don't listen. And even talking with the doctors and trying to grapple be around them, back when I was pregnant with Christian, I was tapped in pretty hard, with his doctors, and we were all trying to work on this because we knew what had caused this issue. But even my parents didn't believe it. And when we were talking about technology advancements, when we started building out the telemonitoring arm for Spectral 2 years ago during COVID, it was so that there would be a higher visibility for patients and have that connection with the doctors, the pharmacy, the wearables, the EMRs, right? Because what happens, to your point, you brought it up very eloquently, was that you are the ER doc, you're not the GP, right? So you don't know what happens to this patient. Once they leave, they've been discharged, right? You don't know what happens to them. You don't know that if they've left the ER and the next day they're back into another hospital for the same pain because they're now have become addicted, not because of you. They went to see you first. You may have been the third person they got to see, right? There's no tracking, right, to this. And even the systems that have been put in place that are supposed to track this don't always catch it. There's no safety net. And so when some of these things happened in my personal family life, it made me realize really the whole reason why we developed this was also to combat. I didn't even think when we were building this that this could help with the opiate crisis, because there's a full visibility. The ER doc is hooked in, your GP is hooked in, your cardiovascular specialist is hooked in. If you have one of them, everybody's hooked into you. And there's an ecosystem of care for you now.
Yeah.
So there's less likely for you to kind of go off track if everybody's monitoring you.
Good point. Yeah.
But that's the future, right?
It is. It is. I'm excited about AI. Obviously, I have 2 books behind me. I wrote these 2 books on ChatGPT and healthcare. Main goal, honestly, was to push doctors to understand that technology is there. A lot of doctors, bless your heart, they're working, and I'm included, where you're so busy and you're having to keep up with so much knowledge. I've read different literature between 34 and 72 days. The medical literature doubles. And so the amount of information that we're expected to know it's a lot of information that we need to keep reading journals and keeping up to date. And so my point is, having this technology, I think, helps educate us. And on the opposite side, patients, I feel like eventually this technology will get to the point where we can educate ourselves on different diseases and have better discharge instructions and better information. And to your point, having more bots that are out there that can help with all this. And I'm excited because I've already seen certain companies out there, simple stuff, I call it simple, on theory it sounds simple, where your voice is tracking your disease, and where there's AI that's listening to her voice and would know, hey, a stroke's coming, or hey, this person has early Alzheimer's, or hey, this person's becoming depressed, and this is how it's listening. And it sounds kind of freaky and scary, but at the end of the day, and to me, it's all about preventative medicine. And the sooner we can catch this disease or diagnose disease or track it better, for example, your brother, then we're really able to say, hey, there was a change. And before it got so bad that he unfortunately had to go to the hospital, what if we caught it at home and we're able to make some changes? To me, that's true medicine.
It's huge, right? It's like, I love the fact that you said preventative, right? That's what we need help with that, right? Yeah. Because what we do now is we react, right? We're reactive because now all of a sudden something's wrong, with you. And like, even myself, not to just like talk about opiates, like, just opiates, but I know back in 18, when I got diagnosed with my autoimmune disorders, I knew something was wrong with me, Harvey, in 2017. Right? I knew I was symptomatic and I knew something was wrong and I was trying to figure out what. And I went to the doctors in February and it was my OB. So some of the things that I have, that I was having symptomatically could have been hormone related. because I had had a child too, right? So I went to the OB with all these things that I was feeling. If I had been hooked up to Spectral or something else, say, in 2017, when I had these problems, the sleep, the anxiety, the weight gain, I was like the Stay Puft Marshmallow person. I kept gaining all this weight. I couldn't get rid of it. I was exercising. You could see that I was exercising, right? And it's still not coming off. What is happening? And I changed my diet. It was all the thyroid that was knocking me out in that case there. So it's true though, Harvey, if we can do a better job starting this, like now going forward, it also will keep the insurance costs down, right? Yeah. It's going to keep the medicine costs down, because if we catch it faster, we can correct it. Maybe this person doesn't need something that they have to take now for the rest of their life.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, thank you for being on today, because we're at the end of our time. You and I can always talk forever.
Yes, for sure. Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor. It's a true honor to be able to contribute something small towards society and help. And so feel free to reach out to me. I'm on all the social media under the, what is it? Harvey Castro MD is my handle on everything. So feel free to reach out.
And we will map you to this podcast shoot. Sorry, I was drawing a blank there. I'm a little tired. When the new patient came in 2 days ago, and it was the elder abuse patient for APA, it was, I've been working around the clock because it was serious. I had to call the authorities. I'm a reporter, just like you are. And so I haven't gotten a lot of rest, because you know how we are. We have to fight for our patients and make sure they're taken care of. So my brain is a little today. But I wanted to thank you so much for being on today, and we'll have your handle at the bottom of this podcast so anybody can connect to you. And if anybody ever reached out to me and asked for you, I would pass them your way, because I strongly suggest that if people have a need and they think there's something you can do to help them, they should reach out to you, Harvey.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And as we always say at the end of every podcast, remember, we are the same. I am Christina DiArcangelo. Thank you for joining us.